Hello everybody. So today we are going to be starting a brand new sort of unit. It is called factoring. Now, previously what we just covered, we covered how to, handle operations with polynomials. Okay, so our objective is going to be, okay, well, how exactly can we go backwards and get the problem that we started with? Okay, so for example, let me kind of just give you a quick question here. If I ask you to multiply x plus 2 times x plus 3, okay, so we learned that we're going to do this through the distributive property. So we're going to take the x and multiply it by these two items. So x times x is x squared. X times a 3 gives you a 3x. Okay. 2 times x is a plus 2x. And then 2 times 3 is a plus 6. Okay, and then remember what we learned: after you do your multiplication, then you combine like terms. And so the only thing to combine here are the 3x and the 2x. So we get x squared plus 5x plus 6. Okay, now, why did I even start the lesson out with that example? Well, here's the deal. For me going from this problem to this answer, we just distributed. Okay, so we're multiplying here, or distributing. Okay, so we're distributing here. Now, the process of us going from this answer back to the problem is what we call factoring. So, factoring is a process of working backwards to the problem. Okay? And you're going to learn that there are many techniques to do this. When is it appropriate to factor this? When is it appropriate to factor that? And we're going to cover that throughout this unit here. Okay? So that brings us to what the first type of factoring is called. Okay, and that's what I have labeled up here, the greatest common factor. Now, you've probably heard that before in your other schooling days, your elementary school days, possibly even your middle school days, okay? But this is very, very, very important, okay? And so we're going to cover this first. Now, just talking out loud here for a moment, first of all, let's define what the greatest common factor is. First of all, its abbreviation, we're going to probably use that most commonly, is GCF. Okay, remember that stands for greatest common factor. Okay, and essentially what it is the highest number or expression that divides into terms. Okay, and I'll elaborate on that a little bit more in a second. But right now, I just kind of want to pose the question to you. If I asked you guys, what is the GCF of a 2 and an 8? Meaning, I want to know what is the highest number that can go into both of these terms, this 2 and this 8. Okay? Well, to figure that out, okay, you're going to list out all the factors. Okay, and then we're going to figure out what is the highest, the greatest factor that they have in common. So, what are the factors of 2? Well, of course, we could start with 1, and then, of course, itself, 2. Okay? And then 8, we've got 1, 2 will go into 8, 4 will go into 8, and then I believe 8 will go into 8, right? And so, we want to figure out, okay, what is the highest number that both of these things have in common? And you can see that it is right here. It is the 2. Okay, they both have that in common. So we would say that the greatest common factor of 2 and 8 is just a 2. Okay, and you may have been thinking in your head, okay, gosh, that was really simple. Why do we even have to learn that? Okay, and some of you guys can determine what the greatest common factor is just by you know your factors or your numbers in your head. But the behind the scenes as to why it's 2 is this explanation right in here. Okay, so Let's do another one of those. Okay. So if I want the GCF of, let's say, 20 and 40. Okay, again, a little bit higher here. Okay, so let's start listing out our factors. So for 20, we've got 1, 2, and 4, and 5, 6, no, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, and then 20. Okay, so those are all the factors of 20. Now let's go ahead and do 40. So for 40, we've got 1, 2, 4, 5, 8, okay, 10, and then we've got 20, and then 40. All right. So those are all the factors that will go into 40. Now we want to figure out what is the highest one that they have in common. Or the highest one that I see is, well, this one has a 20 and this one has a 20. So the highest here is 20. Okay? And we're going to learn also that if you're struggling to, tell us what the factors are, we're actually going to show you guys how to use your calculator to get the GCF, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Okay? Now, I want to ask you, because this is an algebra class now, so of course now we have to throw in a letter. What do you think that the GCF would be of an x and an x squared? All right, so let's think about this. This term right here is one plain old x. This right here represents two x's, correct? X times x, which is why we have the squared here. So my question to you is, what is the highest number of x's that they both at least have in common? How many do they at least have in common? Okay, well, if we want to, we can expand it out just like we did with the factors here. I know that this is just one x, and this is x times x. So the highest that they have in common is just 1x. Okay, because I could circle this one, and I can circle this one, and that's it. Okay, so the idea behind this is we're trying to, again, look for something that they both have in common the most. Okay, the greatest common factor. All right, now, let's do another one. Let me kind of mix it up on you now. So if I asked you now, 3x squared and a 9x. Okay. Now, all I want you to do now is we're just finding the GCF. That's all we're doing right now. Okay? So, I see numbers and I see variables. So, I just do one piece at a time. So, let's handle the number piece first. So, I'm only looking at the 3 and the 9. Okay? So, what is the highest number that will go into both 3 and 9? Okay? Well, that is going to be a 3. Okay, so I know that my GCF, a part of it is 3. Now, most students like to stop there and say, okay, hey, the answer is 3, and stop. Okay, they forget that there are letters here. All of a sudden, they just miraculously disappear. Okay, they're still here, folks, so we need to take care of them. All right, now, only looking at your variables now. This one here has an x squared. This one here has an x. So my question to you is, what do they both at least have in common? Well, they both have one x in common. So the GCF of a 3x squared and a 9x is a 3x. Okay? Okay, now, let me show you the calculator real quick. And then we'll really start getting into the heart of the lesson. Okay, so if I asked you now for the GCF of, let's say, 49 and 42. So we're kind of backtracking here for a moment, but I do want to give the opportunity to show you how to do this in your calculator. Okay? So, here's what you're going to do. Turn it on, of course. All right? And what you're going to want to do here is you're going to want to hit the button that says Math. It's right underneath the green button. You want to scroll over to Num. and you want to scroll all the way down until you see what says GCD. Yeah, it says GCD, greatest common divisor. It's the same thing as the greatest common factor. Okay, so you're going to hit enter. And then it wants to know, okay, what do you want to find the GCD of? So you're going to type the problem in exactly like you see it. 49, comma, now the comma is right near the parenthesis, 42. Close it off, and then hit enter. And you automatically get that the GCD is 7. So you don't even need to list your factors. Okay. Now, I'm not trying to steer you away from not showing work or whatnot. I wanted to, the real premise behind why I showed you that was because I really wanted to show you why it was 7 or why it was the way it was. Okay. But please resort to the strategy if you're still struggling to figure out what exactly is the highest number. Okay. So if I gave you 25 and 45, well, we do the same thing. So math, num, scroll down till you get to GCD, and then we want 25, comma, 45, and we get that the GCD is 5. Now, there's a downside to this, and that is, what if I gave you 3 numbers, okay? So we're going to look at it right now. So what if I gave you this? 63, 9, and 27. Okay, and I want the GCD of that. Well, unfortunately, the calculator, guys, can only handle 2 numbers at a time. So what you're going to have to do here is you're going to have to find the GCD of the first 2, get an answer, then take the answer and do the GCD with the other number you haven't used yet, which is 27. So one thing at a time. Let's do the first 2 numbers first. Math, num, GCD of 63, comma, 9. And you get that it is 9. So between these 2, it's 9. Now don't stop right there and say and assume that it's 9. It could be, of course. However, we need to verify that with the last number. So we're going to do the GCD again with 9 and 27. So again, so I want 9, comma, 27. Hit enter. And yes, it is 9, but remember, do not assume. Okay? And the other downside of the calculator is that it will not do variables for you. Okay, so that part you really need to have an understanding of. Okay? So let's go ahead and look at some problems together and talk about the process of factoring.